Hello. Hi. Welcome. Come on in. Sit down. You're probably already sitting. Don't listen to me. I don't know what's going on. Hi. Hi everybody. Merry time zone to you. Today is a special day. We're going to talk about sci-fi RPGs for a little while. We're going to talk about science fiction role-playing games, which I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know this about me, but I really like sci-fi. I know, surprise, surprise. And I'm super into RPGs. Go figure. Now, when you think about sci-fi RPGs, what RPGs do you think of, right? When you're like, okay, I got to make a list in my head of science fiction role-playing games. What games do you think of? I mean, obviously for me, because I'm old, the first thing I think of is Traveler, and then right after I think of Traveler, I think of Stars Without Number, right? Traveler is the great granddaddy of all sci-fi role-playing games, right? It came out in 1974, like right after AD&D. 74 or 77, early as fuck though, like way early. So Traveler came out really early. It was very aggressively like detailed in the way that this kind of simulationist AD&D was. You really needed a calculator to play it. Basically, that's where we got our start. Metamorphosis Alpha, Gamma World, though. When I think of sci-fi RPGs, I don't really think of the post-apocalypse, right? Like, I don't think Apocalypse World is Apocalypse World a sci-fi RPG? And this is the thing. This is the thing about sci-fi, right? Fantasy RPGs, I think, fit into a much tighter orbit than sci-fi, right? Sci-fi to me feels like this massive, broad, expansive space. Space in role-playing games where there are lots of not very connected games. I think it might be more suitable to look at sci-fi RPGs in a different way. To look at them in terms of whether they are trying to tell a different story that happens to be set in space, or whether they are trying to simulate what it might be like to be in a sci-fi universe, right? Like, I'm thinking here about the difference between like Traveler and Scum and Villainy, or like a Fate game set in space versus something more mechanically aligned. And sort of somewhere in the middle, we have games like Stars Without Number. I think the big challenge of sci-fi RPGs is that they put on the GM, and to some degree the players, a much bigger responsibility for crafting a much larger setting, right? Like, yes, we have the multiverse of Dungeons & Dragons. We have Faerun, we have Dragonlance, or whatever, but for the most part, the players can't say, we get in our transdimensional space warp device, and we fly off to a whole nother planet that you need to build as the GM. And exploration is such a big part of sci-fi RPGs that systems tend to require either a way to quickly generate brand new places or a very complex, highly charted universe that you are playing in already. So I guess that's another way that we can kind of divide sci-fi RPGs. Is it Burning Empires with its own very detailed, highly codified universe, or is it something broader, right? So I guess there are multiple axes upon which we can assess science fiction role-playing games before we even start to break down, is this a space travel RPG? Is this a mecha RPG? Is this what I would call, and this is a line, and this is the line we're going to follow today, I think. There is a line of RPGs that begins with Traveler. The seed that Traveler planted has grown up into a mighty tree bearing many kinds of fruits. And the first time I ever heard this genre or subgenre or sub-subgenre described was by John Stone Metzger, who you might know, who's a role-playing game author. He described the Traveler genre as debt runner. which I thought was really funny because the core premise, and you've seen this over and over, I've run it. Swan Song was a debt runner game to begin with. The idea here is that you are given an expensive thing, in this case, a spaceship, and your job is to run missions to free yourself from that debt. It's like inverse D&D. In D&D, you start off poor with nothing, and you want to work your way up to riches. But in a debt runner game, such as Traveler by default, you start at a negative. You begin your game at negative, a million credits, and now it's your job to run things around to pick up money to pay for your ship. Okay. So I have a correction. Johnstone is actually in chat. So Johnstone says it was Hillary who called our Traveler game Debt Runner. I just got to inherit it. There you go. Thank you, Johnstone, for attributing. So Hillary McNaughton, originator of the Debt Runner name. I love it. I think it's genius. And for me, that's what that genre feels like. So today we're gonna take a look at a new game. It's in Kickstarter right now. If you want to check out the Kickstarter link, just use !free spacer down in chat. We're going to check out a new game called Free Spacer. And Free Spacer seems to me, at a first glance, to be a part of that larger kind of debt runner genre. And I want to dig in and kind of get an understanding of where this game fits in the greater scheme of sci-fi RPGs, in addition to taking a look at and kind of understanding the game itself. Because for me, I am always curious when a new sci-fi RPG comes out. I've read more sci-fi RPGs than any other genre or subgenre, and I guess that's not hard to say because there's so many of them. But so Christoph came to me, the author, Christoph Spinski, came to me and said, "Hey, Adam, do you want to check out my game?" And I was like, "Yes." And then he was like, "Do you want to check out my game on your stream?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, double yes. Let's do that, because I can check it out with friends, and you can ask questions, and we can dig into it together." I do things better when I do them in a group. Go figure why I like sci-fi RPGs so much, because you're my crew. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at Free Spacer. It's by Christoph Spinski. You might have heard of it already. The name might be familiar. Christoph is doing a pretty significant hustle on the game, and has been shopping it at conventions, and is a member of our very own math squad. So you might have seen this in the various chats in the game design channel, in the Discord, or in chat here. So let's take a look at Free Spacer. We're looking at the preview version. This is the Kickstarter preview version. And we're going to take a look at a couple of the different subsystems. And I am going to try to answer, of course, the 3 questions. So let's talk about that. When I read a role-playing game, I'm a bad reader. I don't read from page 1 to page 380 or whatever. I jump right into how does the game reward its players? What are the players rewarded for? What are the characters? How do they advance? Because that, to me, says probably the most about any given game. So it may not be the most intuitive way to dig into a game, but that's where I'm going to start. Because I want to know, what is this game about? Right? What is this game about? How is it about that mechanically? So what are the mechanisms that prove that out? And then what are the players rewarded for? And I'm gonna kind of go in reverse order. I'm gonna start there. So rather than like take a look at Free Spacer's intro, we'll come back to it, its setting, its influences, all that stuff's really important. But right now, what are we gonna get rewarded for? When I'm playing this game, how do I win? How do I win Free Spacer? So let's take a look. There's a chapter down here called Advancement, and I want to know how do I advance? What are you gonna give me, game? So let's take a quick look at that bad boy. So I'm gonna go ahead and check out Advancement. All right, so Advancement in this game is the augmentation or modification of the crew, their ship, launch, and crew kits. Run an advancement scene when your crew has gathered a significant cargo of complex materials and they wish to increase their capabilities. You can have multiple advancements in the same scene. So We advance by spending something called complex materials. And immediately, a thing that is different here is that advancement happens as part of the narrative. There are advancement scenes, which screams like Forge era, like narrative-oriented game, which is kind of fascinating, right? So we have to do a scene. We can't just be like, I gain a level. It's like, no, we sit down and we set a scene, and we need specific things to make that scene go, which I think is quite cool. So you have these advancement scenes. You spend complex materials. And what's interesting here is that complex materials are spent to modify and augment your crew, your ship, your launch, and crew kits. So, like, it's an in-fiction thing called complex materials, and you spend them to make yourself better, you spend them to make your ship better, and you boost your kit. So that's kind of interesting. All right, so it requires a scene. The scene is run during a safe period as long as you have access to the required laboratory. I'm curious what you buy laboratories with, and I'm not going to get too deeply into like what costs what, but that's kind of cool that you spend all of this stuff. So I guess the thing that grabs me here is, all right, if I want to get better, I need to get complex materials. Complex materials are like my character points, right? All right, so let's find out what the hell complex materials are. How do I get those? Probably comes up a lot. I'm actually gonna scroll. I'm gonna scroll back to. Let's scroll back to the beginning and we'll look in the table of contents. Complex materials. What are you? All right. So complex materials. Here we go. Complex materials are used in maintenance and advancement scenes. For more on these scenes, whatever, page XXXX, that'll get figured out. So that's cool. As a free spacer crew, you never fly without materials for repair and healing. You begin with 20 complex materials. So that means that complex materials are something that we will pick up in the game as part of our literal cargo. Our cargo is supply, trade goods, and complex materials. Complex materials, we use them to advance all of our stuff. Yeah, it seems like they're an abstraction of like other stuff. Let's see where else complex materials pop up. Here we go. Complex materials keep you flying. They are cutting-edge materials used in construction of your ship, tools, and implants. Complex materials is a single abstract resource that represents carbon fiber reinforced alloys, plastic carbon composites, hyperdiamond fins, transparent alloys, biotech resins, and biogel. Unobtainium. Yeah, right? So like, your stock of this material is just something that takes up your cargo space. You use it to maintain and advance your crew member, kit, crew, launch, and ship. You treat as a priority cargo. Yeah, it's like one kind of generic thing that we use to upgrade and manage our characters and our ship and all of that stuff together. It's like what is it in Mass Effect? This stuff is Element Zero. Something like that, I think it's called. But yeah, it's like a resource that you use to make your thing. Now you have to use it for a bunch of different stuff. So it's like, yeah, EZO. That's what I was thinking. So you have to like balance. Do I advance my character? Do we advance the ship? Do we save it for maintenance? If the ship takes a hit, that means that necessarily we slow our own advancement. And then we have to balance it in terms of cargo space against trade goods, assets, and supply. And assets are used for projects, for like building like new things. And we'll take a look at the project rules later. So yeah, combat seems like risky in this. You could lose your XP. Fascinating. Yeah, and it's quite complicated, right? Okay, so that means if we're trying to figure out what we're rewarded for, so far at least, doing stuff in universe, right? So like getting complex materials, like taking action. So this means so far I haven't seen anything that says we don't get XP for role playing, right? We don't get complex. It's not like you deliver a Shakespearean soliloquy and someone is like, here, have a complex material, right? Here is a block of element zero because you RP'd so hard. So I wonder what about this game encourages us to play our character using experience. Like what is it that's going to encourage characterization in the game, right? So that's kind of cool. So right now we have these 4 assets that we pick up that are in universe: complex material, supply, asset, and trade goods, and they all form a kind of matrix of what will make us successful or unsuccessful in the game. Cool. Well, let's take a look. Let's pop back to our opening, and let's take a look at the beginning of the game. Let's actually go at this like we're supposed to. So let's take a look at welcome on board. So what are you, if we look at FreeSpacer and we just ask politely, we let FreeSpacer tell us what it's about. FreeSpacer is a sandbox science fiction game about a crew of a commissioned starship working for a patron faction in a quadrant-wide Cold War. Okay, that's a lot. There's a lot in that sentence. So sandbox science fiction game. Sandbox and sci-fi is pretty normal. That's a fairly normal mode. It means that the GM has prepared to some degree or another a space in which the game will take place, and you move around in that space as you like. It's not a plot-driven game necessarily. It is an environment-driven game. So there'll probably be exploration, which to me indicates that we're going to require something for building that sandbox. There's got to be some kind of GM tool set for us to do that, right? And again, this goes back to Traveler. I imagine Traveler also has some inspirations in it, where you build a ship that flies around the universe selling things. I want to ask Mark, the guy who wrote Traveler. I want to ask him, like, where did this framework come from? I want to track back the original source of the like Debt Runner model. I mean, it's probably historical, right? Anyway, so it's a sandbox game. You play a group of people that work, you're a crew of a starship. So that's important, right? Starship. You work for a patron, and notice patron is capitalized here. So a patron, you have a boss, someone who like helps you or tells you what to do. There are factions, and there's a quadrant-wide Cold War. So Cold War, right? This means that it's not a hot war. There aren't like factions shooting at each other with lasers and missiles on some grand scale. This isn't a game about navigating an active war, so that's interesting too. And I assume, or I hope, that there is some kind of mechanism in the game for managing those factions. Obviously, the big killer app of Stars Without Number is its faction turn. So we'll see what this game has for that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe your patron grants you demon spells. I don't know. So we play to find out how the crew gets the job done, the choices they make, the rules they break, and the lengths they'll go to for their patrons. So that is kind of cool. I like the idea of, like, notice that it doesn't say we'll play to find out if the crew gets the job done. It says how. So that's kind of interesting. It seems to me that success or failure is not a thing that we should pay attention to necessarily. It's about how you do the job, the choices you make along the way, a tension between what you're supposed to do and what you actually do, and then the lengths you'll go to for your patron. So this idea of, and I like that. I really like that. The idea of like a patron saying, do this thing. And you're like, that's too much. I don't know if I'm going to do that thing. Yeah. How far will you go to get shit done? Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Kind of interested in that. So again, we're answering the first question. What is this game about? The game is going to need to use its mechanics to prove to us that it's about these things. So it's a role-playing game designed for a specific brand of science fiction. So it's not a game in which you can play every kind of science fiction. The features built around the core mechanics promote immersive play that emphasizes choice, risk, science, and the life of a crew just trying to get paid. Immersive play and the rules we've seen so far, the reward model, I'm going to need to go looking for what encourages that immersive play. I'm not sold yet. A role-playing game is a conversation powered by your imagination, but you need a little more than that to play FreeSpacer. Okay, so we need a group, 3 to 6 players. We need sheets. We'll take a look at the sheets later once we have some context for them. We're going to need dice. And I love this. I love that we're on page 7 here. I love that it gives us a basic understanding of the mechanics from the get-go. I hate games that give us I hate games that give us a bunch of choices to make first and then are like, "Hey, here's the actual mechanisms for the game." Don't do that. If you're making a role-playing game, give me an understanding of the core mechanism early so that later when I'm like assigning dice and shit, I can understand what I'm doing. I've played way too many games that start with character creation and then tell you what all of your choices mean in context later. Don't do that to me. Don't. So this is good. So the game uses 2 types of dice, task dice and threat dice. Task dice are D10s, which are your effort to complete the task. And then threat dice are D6s, which represent danger confronted in the task and may result in misses. So it looks like this is a subtractive dice pool system where you like start with your it's kind of like I think the first one that comes to mind, though, you're probably going to think of a different one. The first thing that comes to mind is the Fantasy Flight Star Wars uses this like competing dice pool system, right? So it's like I grab 5 good dice and you as the GM give me 3 bad dice. I roll them all together. The good and the bad dice even each other out, and whatever is left is what we have. I like that. It can be a little to like there's a little bit more math, but I think that physical step of putting the dice together and moving them off the table and seeing what's left and then making up a result from that it's pretty fun. It gives you a granularity that a single success or fail like a D20 doesn't. It can be a bit more complex to like jumble together, but I think once you get into it, I kind of like these, and I can't think of many games that use this kind of dice pool besides the Fantasy Flight Star Wars. But I'm sure they exist. I must have played them before. Yeah. Huh. Anyway, so that's cool. Right. So we use D10s, D6s, and then the game has a bunch of tables that we use to do things with percentile dice, because we've already got those D10s on the table. So the setting appears to be I'm seeing some like actual stuff, but I know that part of the initial step, part of what the game calls commission, is building the universe's details. So there was a thing called the Exploration War, or Exploration Wars, and they're over. So there's no more of those. After 500 years, something called the Cardinal Compact ended the warfare, but not before everything changed. Orion is the frontier of the Milky Way. The quadrant is balkanized with authority fragmented between a weak cardinal society, challenging provinces, and a multitude of backwater rim states. Likewise, species have been scattered among the new society, creating new cultures with histories built on more than genetics. While peace exists between societies under the compact, a cold war continues between smaller factions. You and your group decide the course of the wars and their outcomes. As part of character creation, you'll build your own significant societies and species for your game. So that's cool. Again, like a little bit of what we had in Stars Without Number, a bit of this kind of like microscope style like group generation of the universe. So that's kind of cool. And as part of commissioning, we're going to build 3 societies that represent the results. We decide what incited the war, who the ancient society known as Old Gold was, what happened to Earth, and the outcome of the conflicts. That's super cool. So I think this is really nice, because a lot of games, especially like sandbox sci-fi, will just be like, I don't know, you know what sci-fi is, here you go, just make this stuff up. But what I love about Stars Without Number, and this game by extension, is it plants a seed and says, for the game to work, you need these things, right? You need this stuff. We need to know 3 Orion societies. We need what caused the war. We need it's like a Mad Lib type of a thing. And I like that. I think that's really useful, because you want to constrain it so that you can build a game that actually serves that stuff. But then you want to give players the ability to flesh out that backdrop themselves. Kind of like what I've done with, I mean, you saw this all over Swansong, right? Where because Higgins was like a space cowboy, I derived some of his culture from what he was saying. So whenever he was like, oh yeah, I'm from this planet, and I'm like, oh, is everybody from your planet like that? This just formalizes that into building the setting. So you get a constrained setting, but you yourself have choices around what that setting looks like and the various communities and civilizations therein. So that's cool. And it hammers out some of the science and technology, right? So for me, sci-fi games, I will define them based on like how hard or how soft the sci-fi is, right? On the soft end, we have like hand wavy, I don't know, it's basically magic, don't worry about it. And then on the other end, we have like, here is some very specific math. The reason I don't play Traveler anymore is the acceleration deceleration mathematics and mechanisms for like planetary albedo. It's cool, but oh boy, that shit is not for me. You think I'm bad at basic math. So how scientific is it? And by extension, how much of that gets reflected in the mechanisms of the game? You can have narratively focused hard sci-fi, but I think it's much harder to have very crunchy, soft sci-fi. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got different stuff. So what is it in this game? How does tech work in the Orion Quadrant, right? So you carry a clone copy of the entire galactic data flow with you in a personal area network. There is a ubiquitous 0-point network like the internet. Okay, so that's cool. So there's an internet. Communication is limited. So short-range comms communicate within a spacecraft, but otherwise might be limited. Tachyon comms have greater range within a star system. Sector-wide comms are conducted by travel. So again, much like Stars Without Number, the way I run it at least, where it's like you can communicate in the system relatively easily, but you got to put all the comms on a spaceship and carry them. So there's Age of Sail style, Space Pony Express, yeah. So anagathics, which is a biotech treatment that stops aging and extends lifespan, right? The spice extends life. There are a bunch of people that have life expansive technology. That's a thing, and it's enough of a thing that it's on page 9. The Exploration War ended when the Cardinal Powers shared these things. So it was like, you're allowed to join the Cardinal Compact and become an immortal or a semi-immortal, but you have to stop fighting. So that's kind of a big deal, right? That they place this. And then obviously FTL is a big one. Basically for me, the holy trinity of sci-fi, when you understand a system, is faster than light travel. What does it look like? How does it work? Aliens, right? Not non-humans. So that includes AI in my mind, those two things. And then communication, right? The internet. Is there a network? What does it look like? How does that work? Is it like Star Trek where we can communicate no matter where we are in the universe? Do we send comms? Is it one-to-one? Those three things are my like assessment for setting. So fold drives are our FTL here. Enables starships to fold between the rim of a system to the core of another system within the same sector. A fold takes very little time to travel, while sublight travel from the core to the rim can take around a day. So that's interesting. It isn't like I'm going to head for the other end of the sector. It'll take me, 20 days, 30 days, a month, 2 months. This isn't like going around the horn. This is like a 15-minute space fold. So ostensibly, from planet to planet, it's like 2 days and a 15-minute space jump. Now, it gives a clear actual amount of time it takes to travel, which is different from a lot of like narrative systems where you can track this in like downtime, right? You get like one travel scene. And I actually really love those scenes. I love being able to ask, all right, you're in travel for 3 days. Who has scenes? Who wants to talk? It's like the campfire of Dungeons and Dragons. You're taking a long rest. Who's talking to who? What are you doing? Who's making food? Who's praying to the gods? So in this, we get sublight travel to the core, or from the core to the rim, and then a 15-minute jump. What does that look like? And then modular tech. So ship and tools are limited but upgradable. Use a modular starship you configure to your purposes. So we talked a little bit about upgrading and kind of how that works. So Free Spacer is inspired by, let's see what you were inspired by. This is interesting because I think inspiration stuff in games is really kind of cool to me, because I almost feel like knowing these influences in advance is like cheating. Like, I like reading a game and trying to guess what they're influenced by and then coming back and confirming it, because I think you can say that you're inspired by something and then completely miss the point with the mechanics. But it is cool to see what they were trying to do. So Alien makes sense. Babylon 5, Cowboy Bebop, Dark Matter, Farscape, Firefly, Killjoys, and Star Trek. Okay, so that's quite a lot. That's a broad. I would say many of these are quite different, but I can see the thread through some of them, and it's hard to know what inspired what, right? Like Debt Runner and Star Trek don't really go together, because nobody in Star Trek, you don't have to pay for your spaceship. But like Firefly is a classic Debt Runner. Cowboy Bebop also massively classic Debt Runner. The first Alien especially super Debt Runnery, because they're just like company thugs. I'm not as familiar with like Dark Matter or Farscape, but that's interesting. So Larry Niven, Robert Heinlein, Switchblade Honey. Okay. Right. All right. Again, quite broad. I would have liked to have seen some like specific titles here, but that's okay. I think a lot of people are expecting The Expanse, right? The Expanse to me is a big Debt Runner, but maybe that wasn't an inspiration here. And then RPGs, this is where we're going to look for like mechanisms. So like what is the stuff that, because none of these are, I mean, I guess one or two of these are sci-fi, but like Blades in the Dark is the first listed. Blades, Dungeon World, Fate. I can see how those three might be connected. Shadowrun, right? Okay. Star Wars. And I assume Star Wars in this case is the D6 Star Wars. I don't know who wrote that, but Dave Allen, Sean Carmen, and Jay Little. I don't know. Someone can confirm for me which of the many Star Wars RPGs. And then Traveler, obviously. Yes. Yeah. So, okay. Interesting. And then video games. Mass Effect, Star Control 2, No Man's Sky, Star Citizen. Makes sense. Got it. Okay. So let's talk about, I want to talk about the core stuff in the game, right? Like this game has principles. So if you're a player, you have to do these things. So you agree to do this stuff. I really like this. I like that there are PC and Game Master principles in this game. I think every game should have these. I like that like Tales from the Loop has these. Like generally, like we all agree that these are the things. So like you agree that you're gonna role play, which I think is like, it's cool. I want to see how we're rewarded for that when we actually play the game, right? But here we are agreeing to role play. When we sit down to play the game, this is what we are choosing to do. So I think that's really cool. And kind of important to just say like, yeah, you can't say no. You can't say like, we're not going to RP in this game. We're going to go above and beyond. So we're going to embrace the life of a free spacer, right? Free spacers are different. They are not the kind of regular people of the universe. It's kind of like in D&D, right? The game acknowledges that PCs are different from NPCs. We're going to handle resource management. So you can't sit down at the table and say, I didn't know that we were going to have to spend complex materials and balance our cargo load and do all of that, right? You can't say that in this game. You knew from the get-go that this is what was going to be a part of the game. And then the contract is law. So contract is the thing that sets the premise of the game, right? You're going to negotiate contracts based on your letter of marque with your patron. You are going to be commissioned, and you accept and understand that this is an inherent part of the game. We rely on our contracts, and that's the flow of the game, right? Do your contract, you do the work, and you get paid. And that's how the flow goes within the game. Now, the game master's job is to play to find out what happens. This is a very like typical Apocalypse Engine kind of modern game design thing. We're not playing to tell a specific story. We're going to ask questions, starting with commission, right? Starting with the character creation and the universe creation. You ask, this is the apocalypse principle. What do you do, right? We challenge the crew, right? So we give them things to do. It isn't just like, great, you pick up a load of strontium and now you got to fly it to planet F and drop off your strontium on planet F and then fly to planet M and pick up another load of strontium. Like, it's not a thing that you can do. So, you know, we agree that this is part of the thing. And then you prepare a sandbox. You give them things to do and you give them a place in which to do it. So every scene comes from the player's choices. So you don't prepare the scenes themselves. You build the sandbox and you let the scenes take place in that sandbox. And then on top of that, we have the Cold War, right? The crew is not the center of the story, and you press the theme. So I like this. I think that these are, admittedly, they're pretty mushy ways for a game to impart what it's about. You got to back these up with mechanics, but I think it's great to lay it out within the first few pages to just say, here we go. Let's talk about mechanisms. So the mechanisms of the game, we talked a little bit about this. You build your salvo, right? So it's you build a pool of task dice, which are D10s. Let's get into the details before we look at the other stuff. So I might have like a bunch of dice. I might have a bunch of dice that allow me to achieve a task, right? So I'm going to pick up a bunch of D10s. And when I roll them, they're successes on a 5 to 9, which gives me a hit. If I roll a 10, I get 2 hits. I'm given threat dice based on the difficulty and disadvantages from my GM. They're D6s, and when I roll them, if I roll a 1 to 3, they take away one of my successes. I'm so bad at math. It's interesting, though. It's not an even... Like, it's someone with a better understanding of how math works is going to need to, like, work this out for me. It's a 50-50 chance, but what's the difference between a 50-50 chance on a D10 versus 50-50 on a D6? Like, why are the threat dice D6s? Right, there isn't? So yeah, why would we use a D10 and a D6? Why not like 2 sets of D10s? Like, I think it gives you this 1 in 10 for a crit rather than a 1 in 6 on a crit. That's the only difference I can figure. Yeah, it's not quite 50-50 on the D10, is it? Yeah. Better odds. I do like, and that's a great point, visual clarity, right? So this way you don't have to have a pool of red dice and a pool of blue dice. It does seem to be slightly weighed in favor of the player, but that can be mitigated or changed if the pools are different, right? If the mechanisms of the game assume you're only going to have like 3 task dice, but like 5 or 6 threat dice, I think it would, because of the way that my brain works, it would take a little bit to like play this out. And I know that Christoph has a YouTube video where he actually goes into some detail on this. So if you're curious about that, maybe go ahead and check that out. Yeah, cool. Okay. And then you have tools and features. So these feel like class abilities or character abilities that provide you with functions that you don't normally have. So this looks like fictional positioning plus something called charge. So features boost your ability to perform your task by expending charge from your reactor. When activated, fittings and features can provide more dice or add damage to weapon attacks. Oh, okay. So there is a mechanical thing. It's part of your crew kit. And then depending on what our pool looks like when we're done, we end up with partial success with 1 success, complete on 2, critical on 3 to 4 successes, and a double crit if we have 5 or more successes left over. We fail if we have no dice on the table, if everything wipes away. 3 additional fails is a consequence, and then any other result adds complication while also causing a fail. Huh. Interesting. Now, thank God. So a lot of this, I'm gonna alt tab over to Roll20. A lot of this is handled if you're playing online, handled by the Roll20 stuff. You can see that there's some macros built in that'll show us how many successes we have on the various tasks, which is cool. You know, on our character sheet, we should just be able to click the thing. it's a complicated game, right? There's lots of crunchiness in the character sheet. So what we're looking at is essentially a pool that has D10s pitted against D6s. Each die is going to roll a number. Low numbers on the 6s they contribute to the fail end of the pool. They pull us towards fail. 5 to 9 on the D10s will pull us towards success. A 10 on a D10 will pull us even further. It'll give us a crit. It'll give us 2 hits. Once we've cleared all the pools, we end up with a result based on how many successes or how many failures are left. It sounds more complicated on paper than I bet it is when you actually roll the dice. Like if you physically grab those dice and roll them on the table, this is a pretty simple system. Because at a glance, you can see what you ended up with. Yeah, okay, all right. And then you can get conditions, stress, destruction, and wounds that inhibit how you perform tasks. So these are probably like additional negative dice. I don't know if the game ever reduces your D10s, but it does feel like it is a the GM doesn't roll dice in this. All the GM does is give you D6s. It gives you more D6s to like suffer from, and I love that. I love the GM not rolling. I think that's really cool because you can just be like, here, take a bunch more D6s. This is really hard. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's our core mechanism. I want to take a look at, because honestly, like I'm the GM. I want to look at the GM shit. I want to look at the game master stuff, right? There's a lot of really interesting character creation stuff and world creation stuff. Like that's what this whole commissioning section is. Also, that's a cute name for like, I think naming stuff is really important in games. I think the fact that you choose to call it commissioning, it's the same as how like in Burning Wheel, we don't make characters, right? We don't generate characters. We burn them. So we don't build a world. We don't generate a world. We commission a universe. There is a commissioning session. So that's pretty cool. I like that. So let's take a look. Obviously, there's like a bunch of really cool like tables. There are things for figuring out our ship. I don't want to go into the details of every single one of these, but as I flip through them, they look really cool. Look, ship configuration charts. Look. So this is a very specific kind of like nerdiness that I gotta tell you, like, it's hot. This is hot shit. I like this stuff. I don't know that necessarily it's a good fit for every single group, but like this FTL style configuration, blocking, like building your shift. Yeah. This is 100% somebody's fetish. And I think if you put this in front of certain types of sci-fi fans, they're going to be like, oh yeah, warp nacelles. Right? How much do we use for sensors? How much do we use for shields? And you see this kind of system all over the place, right? This is the Diablo inventory. This is upgrades in Nier Automata, right? Torchbearer uses something like this. It's pretty cool. So this is a part of character creation. This is part of commissioning. So you configure your ship aspects, then you commission your crew, right? So everybody makes a person. Also keep in mind that we do universe, then we do ship, then we fill the ship with people. So it's the free market approach where you build the larger group and then you build the characters to fit that group. I think that's important and I think it's really cool. So we do that, we commission the crew, we sort them into departments. Oh man, spaceships, and then we can do some wartime history. So that's pretty damn cool. As far as aliens go, this looks like before, like as you create your character, you figure out if you're the only one on the ship, what your relationship is with the other species. You talk about your language. So I really like connecting aliens. Or sapients, I believe. Your species, you connect it directly to a character. It's not like, here are the 40 species in the universe. It's like these sophonts matter because we are them, right? Context. context universe building. Yeah. Pretty cool. All right. So let's take a look. I'm going to actually go back. I'm going to go back to the initial bit, and I want to look for the GM stuff. So like the tools that we use to prep the universe. And then I want to talk about projects, character projects. So let's look at game preparation. Let's look at game prep. All right. So game preparation, before you start the first session, you review the book so you can talk to the group about what kind of game you want to play. It's set in a specific place, but you will build all this stuff together for a lot of it. Game preparation can seem like a massive job for the game master. It is front loaded. There's more at the beginning and it tapers off as you play. For me, that's fucking awesome. I really like heavily front-loaded, like massive job type things, especially if there's like automated tools for doing that for me. But I really like front-loading all the prep because for me, I can sit down in front of an audience. I can make this part of the like shared game experience, and we can do that together, which I think is really cool. But it's not going to be for everybody, right? The game will walk us through that stuff. It also says when you're preparing a one-shot, just like use an existing sector archive. So I think that's cool if you want to, because people ask me all the time, like, how do I do a one-shot of Stars Without Number? And I'm like, set it in Acheron Row, I guess. Like I did all that work for you already. It is nice that the game states up front in game prep, like, hi, we're this specific kind of game. A lot of games will try to soften that blow because they want you to buy it. A lot of games will be like, it may seem like a lot of work, but like, don't worry about it. It is cool that it's just like, yeah, it's front loaded. There's a lot of work. That's just how it is. We made this game the way it is and do it. Right? Just do it. So that's kind of cool. I like that. All right. So for the GM stuff, we're going to build a timeline of Orion, right? Represents some general stuff that happens. And I like that it has like specific events that occur. Again, it's that Mad Libs approach, right? It's not like figure out a general timeline, make it yourself. It's like you need early Orion, emergence, golden age, trigger, battles, cardinal compact, founding, instigating event. You need these 7 things to make your universe. You either figure themselves out yourself or you roll on a table to build a universe. So your universe might be early Orion, might be a hunting expedition from the Nobelius Quadrant has lost, etc. Right? Or you could pick one from this list. So you just continue to do that. Then you create prevailing trends in your sector. So that's cool. Prevailing tendencies, a theme, topic, or issue of concern for your campaign. Again, sci-fi is not just about flying around in space. It's about what does it mean to fly around in space? Why? What's going on? So you come up with trends, and it looks like the trends are laid out on an axis between history and science, fear and ideals. That's pretty cool. This is the alignment chart of the universe. Trends for the campaign. Science and ideals, ideals and history, fear and history, science and fear. Fascinating. So like let's place some of this shit in Acheron Row. So synthetic humans probably fit under science and ideals, but the Crux Purge fits under science and fear. The noble houses fit under history and ideal, but feudalism fits under history and fear. Yeah. And obviously this isn't about specifically like agreeing 100% on where something goes. It's about flavoring something. Like the Butlerian Jihad from Dune would fit under history and fear or science and fear. It would be like close to that middle line. This is really cool. This feels to me like you could build one of these for any role-playing campaign. Like you could build a trends matrix and you could place themes throughout that matrix to give you an idea. It's like fronts or something. Yeah, flavoring things. Yeah, that's fucking cool. And then during the Cold War phase, you'll update the trend chart. Awesome. So then we do sector mapping. So we name the sector. You can pre-build the sector if you're an ambitious game master by putting planet. Do we want to look at that sector map again? So we get this is some deep shit right here with iconography. Check this out. So this is like a pre-built sector map over here. Look. So this for me walks that thin line between, oh my God, this is so cool, and oh God, I'm terrified of this. I kind of love it. So we have this sector map that isn't just like, this is taking the Stars Without Number sector map another level deeper. It's terrifying, but also pretty fucking cool. Right here's where God lives. So this is the Orion sector, and while we have like some generic stuff about it, we need to, using the rules of the game, we need to figure out the core, the sector hub, what kind of star it is, and then we plot out all these systems. Now, I do like that it calls out, if you're really ambitious, you do this in advance. Let's see, where's that text? So yeah, it basically says, like, if you're into this early on, if you want to, go ahead and build this hex crawl yourself. Deliberately roll up every single system on a map, and as the crew exports, they add the system to their map. This is that Tomb of Annihilation shit, where in Roll20 you have two maps and you reveal the hexes as the players go to them. Right? You could reveal like the core systems and say, you know, this is the Philadelphia system. This is the Rhode Island system. This is the Boston system. This is Planet Boston and you build out all these systems, but then you're like, here's the Wild West. Like Ohio is out there somewhere. There is a California system, but go find it. So yeah, like that's a really cool thing. It gives you those option between the two. Yeah, before first play, create 9 to 20 systems, put them in the hub, scatter them around, and then let the characters go find them. Here we are, off to the Ohio system. Nice. Complicated. I like it. This is the kind of complicated I like. I don't know that I like in-game mechanical like complication. It looks like this game is weighted in the ways that I like. It's got all of the meat in the good GM shit, and then it's nice and lean on the player level. We'll dig into the player stuff, but I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the distribution. So tons of tools for building out all of that stuff. Coming up with names for your planets, coming up with species, giving your species traits, and then factions. So building factions. What kind of faction are they? What is their role? So even deeper kind of understanding of that. So like, for example, House Crux is they could be military, they could be an order, right? Organization that protects and advocates. They're an order, advocates for a subset of the population. Their role is resident, maybe broad membership of the population, or service, state agent. Some good opportunity to like adjust there. Oh man, this is kind of cool. I like it. And then a concept, right, for forces in the universe. So this is where you get into the kind of Stellaris stuff. Yeah, and most of the time the players won't. That's a good point, Valask. Like most of the players won't see this stuff. It's up to you to express why something is like a menace or a rebel or a resident or whatever, right? It's not something the players will necessarily have access to. And remember, one of these factions will be those characters a patron. They'll work for a patron. So obviously that's the most important one when you do your creation. Then we go back to history. We do the Cold War phase. So we figure out how those factions butt heads with each other, what their struggle looks like. And then the outcome, we gain some additional tags. And then proposal. So this is interesting. So this is like hooks, right? Because all of this shit is irrelevant. All of this game design stuff that powers the world building stuff doesn't matter until it interacts with characters in play, right? So the Cold War phase is, yeah, a little bit of our like faction turn. Yeah, Cold War phase is our faction turn stuff. That's what gets these. We build the factions, we slam them into each other to see how they get changed, how they get modified. And then we have proposals. We have these things that say, what is up in this game? What are we actually doing at the table, right? Are you following their agenda? There's some events. There's a proposal they can offer to you that you take. And then we divide up our campaign according to that. And I guess we get paid in the here it is. There you go. I was about to say, I guess we get paid by that stuff we saw way back at the beginning when we looked at advancement. So we get paid according to complex materials, supply, assets, and trade goods, and the players can negotiate how much they get of what stuff. Man, that is cool. That is super cool. And then here's all of our guild shit. The impossible, a genre of speculation, wonder, and the impossible revealed, but never commonplace. Cool. So this is like the like additional kind of magical shit, right? How to do this stuff. How to do this stuff in our game. Pretty cool. So yeah, lots of really interesting material for like building a universe, detailed stuff. Someone, hopefully, somewhere will just give us like a thing where I can click once and it will randomly generate all of this stuff. But also it would be super cool to just sit down and like dig in. Because this is like hours of lonely fun. If you want to do this for every planet. Man, this is a well supported GM. Pretty cool. All right, good. Hey, look, gender tables. That's cool. All right, so let's take a look. Without, I mean, I'm not obviously we're still in the GM building section. We're looking at the GM's toolkit. There are like a million different options for building stuff, for creating vehicles and spaceships, and yeah, okay, this is a lot. I don't want to go through the detail of everything, but keep in mind that the game gives you options as the GM for basically building anything you want, and then I assume provides like some pre-built stuff, either as part of the game or as downloads. So that's pretty damn cool. Let's take a look. I want to look while we still have make sure we still have some time. Let's take a look at the character stuff. So yeah, I want to understand character projects. I want to understand charge. I want to know where like role-playing sits. I want to understand what a player character looks like. So let's look at the player side. What have you got for me, Free Spacer? What is it like to be a player in this game? So we looked at commissioning, we looked at game mechanics for the GM, but we haven't looked at the crew. So I think crew life might be where that happens. Skills, crew kit, characters. Well, let's just go through from the beginning because I assume character stuff will be early on. So here's our player principles. We've got our subsection for commissioning. We go through building the universe together. We make our ship together. We make our individual characters. So here's the crew. So when we make our characters, we choose aspects that give us skill packages. Okay. And then we pick crew kits and we station our characters. All right. Okay. So we make our own. Here's the summary. All right. We make our own crew member. So department, what do you do? Choose 2 stations and gain a package for each. They include an expertise skill, a department skill, train skill, and corresponding specialties for each. So your skills come from what you do on the crew. It's not like you build a character and then figure out where they go. You figure out your skills based on what you do. Okay. I like that. That's cool. We figure out where you're from and which faction you were part of during the war. You get your association language from that. Figure out what you did during the war, which is some more skills. Your species, which is a trait package. How are you recruited? What drives you? Here we go. So drive, this is your RP stuff. What drives you as a free spacer? If you take risks to pursue it, you gain charge. All right. So charge is our RP resource. This is the thing that we get. Cool. Okay. Some more skills for training. We get our tools, 5 upgrades to new mods or armor slots. Charge your reactor by 3. Contact, so you make up an NPC. That's what association is. That's cool. And then you choose one member as the captain. They get some social. They should have social skills. They won't necessarily be in charge, but the patron treats them that way. So the captain in this case is really the person that interfaces with the patron. And then debt shares. To retire, you have to deal with this between contracts. Okay, yeah, so there's the debt running. And then you work out your physical characteristics, your pronouns, social attitude, personal style, how your ship suit looks, what your pan projects, and your alias. Cool. All right. I love that the captain isn't necessarily the person in charge. I really like that distinction. That's cute. Cool. All right. Oh, here we go. So this is more specifically like you pick your department. Are you comms? And if you're comms, you get linguist, quartermaster, researcher, logistics officer, steward. Expertise of culture, economy, interface, politic, sophontology. That's like aliens. And then training, sophontology, politic, economy. And I think those are all skills. Yeah, they are. Mechatronics, inscription, pulse projection. Yeah, lots of different skills in this game. It's a skill-heavy game. Cool. Okay, right. So you pick where you're, what department you're in. Comms, operations, engineering. Yeah, okay. And then each one has its own like sub stuff that lets you figure out what you do on the ship. Are you the doctor? Are you the engineer? A programmer? A gunner? Yeah, those are subsets of yeah, okay, I see that now. So comms is the larger department, and then what station in comms? Are you a linguist? Okay, cool. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so multiple people could be from the same department, I guess, because you could be like, I'm a researcher and you are a logistics officer. Or we're both in ops. I'm a Marine and you're a pilot. Yeah, and I think this assumes that it's a bigger ship because these are all quite specific. Yeah, could you theoretically, I don't know, could you theoretically all be ops? I mean, playing a linguist in an RPG, I mean, it's Arcturus, right? I mean, Arcturus was a cleric, but Arcturus was really about all that language stuff. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, neat. And then you figure out like yourself as a person. So your wartime history, because we all just came out of a period of war. You figure out your background. Oh my God. I just found my background, kids. I get points in culture, economy, and politic. That's cool. Right? It says streamer if you can't read it. It's a back here now. I gotta scroll all the way down there. Cool. Okay, so you figure out your background. Let's see what Streamer says. Streamer. The data flow is more than a galactic information and communication network. As a streamer, it is your community. You are a data flow personality that entertained and informed your followers. During the Exploration Wars, you were a hub of information about current events, military actions, and pop culture. You may have been a frontline reporter, an entertainer, or propagandist. Now that the wars have ended, you may have taken a commission to move on from the online life, to run from data flow trolls. Or maybe you just needed something exciting to keep your followers watching. Oh my god, I'm so into it. I'm being pandered to so hard right now. I'm here for it. Yes. That's fucking cool. I can be myself in space. All right. All right. All right. You got me. I'm into it. What species are you? This is where you build up your species, and then before you make the species, you decide if you're the only one on the ship. If you're recruited with other members, talk to the other players to see if there's we're both this thing. And then you have associations with other species. So it's I am a Vulcan. I'm the only Vulcan on board. Vulcans like humans. And then you figure out your language. Here's a stat block for your base humans. And then you figure out your contract. And then here's your drive. So your drive, this is the character. This is how we get rewarded. This is the RP shit. So your drive is your impetus to keep flying. It is the rationale that drives you to take risks, face hazards, and take contracts that most would not dare. The life of a free spacer is dangerous and not for those afraid to get off the ship and get the job done. If your drive doesn't reward you during play, you may change it. Each drive rewards you for taking specific risks during play. So it feels both like alignment and then also kind of like goals or beliefs from Burning Wheel. So your drive might be agenda, right? Your faction's agenda, the spread of interstellar communism. It might be compassion, right? You want to take risks to help people who can't help themselves. It might be celebrity, right? Fame. You might want to be a famous streamer. It might be greed. You might want to be a rich streamer. It might be idealism. You believe in something greater than yourself, a philosophy, laws, honor, code, or religion. Liberation, right? Factions oppress people. You take risks to liberate communities, individuals, and data. Order. You cannot permit chaos, so you're out there to keep order. Science. You are inquisitive, a seeker of knowledge, a pursuer of progress. So this is your personal thing. Now, people are asking about what about blackmail? What about that kind of thing? So your contract, the reason why you became, isn't the reason why you keep doing it. So your contract might be indentured, devoted, mentored, professional, or coerced. So your patron might have coerced you into it, but while you're trying to do your job, you might also have idealism, or might be trying to liberate people. So it's the why, the practical why, and then the philosophical why, right? It's the difference between your job and your passion. I was recruited into streaming because I am a professional, but I continue to stream out of a combination of greed, idealism, compassion, and fame. I got to pick one, but it's all those. We'll see. We'll see how it works in play. And then we get some special training and standardized tools, and we do the rest of those things. Okay, so let's talk about what drive does. I want to know about charge. What the fuck is charge? Help me understand charge. There it is. It's a resource. Charge. This is cool too. I'll admit I looked at this a little bit in advance. So the charge resource represents the fine-tuning of complex technologies and relationships. So what's cool about charge is that charge is a nebulous ephemera, but it's also a concrete thing, kind of like the complex materials, right? So the charge is you spend it to bolster tasks using tools within the same network as the reactor that stores it. A reactor is a piece of in-game zero tech, magic foofara, that draws 0-point energy from space-time and provides base power for everything in its network. In game mechanics term, the reactor adds as a resource pool, storing charge. You charge your personal network with good RP. So ship reactor is the core of your contingency type corvette. It provides power to all the ship systems. You and your crew share the reactor. Any of you may expend its charge to bolster tasks using the ship systems. So it's shared. Your portable reactor is the heart of your crew kit. This is your like element 0 personal thing, right? You can expend its charge to bolster any tasks using your crew kit. Charging is the process of incrementally adding charge to the reactor. You add charge to the reactor at the beginning of each session and during play. Charging increases the charge by 1. There are 2 methods, achievement and adventure. Achievement, they will inquire about the deeds you achieved last session. If you took specific risks and hard choices, charge your reactor. So handled well, this kind of thing is really cool because you'd sort of hand wave like why my personal motivation psychically like charges my own network of stuff. Like it's like having an emotive achievement battery that charges your own personal shit. Like, hey, you want your graphics card to work better? Go out and be like a better person. Follow your goals. Yeah, and it's like a game bargaining chip. It's a thing you charge with RP and you spend to do better. It's like Fate or Persona points in Burning Wheel. It's like, I mean, a ton of games use this system. Yeah, weird and cool. So when you achieve things like Turmoil, Drive, Resolve, Victory, you get charge. Great risks and extraordinary successes lead to adventure. When you perform these adventurous tasks, the situation sways in your favor. So when you get a crit, you get 1 charge. Oh, cool. Interesting. So there's a mechanical aspect to this too. So if you crit, you get charge. If you double crit, you get 2 charge. If your threat dice double your task dice, you'll probably fail, but you get a charge. Your reactor maxes out. Every reactor begins with a minimum minimum capacity. That it's a little confusing. It's not a minimum capacity. It's minimum starts at 3. So you can only ever hold 3 charge. So what's funny is that as we were reading this, Valask said, let's hope the players don't hoard this. They can't. Your charge, your personal energy store hits a max of 3. You can upgrade it by spending complex materials. See, I'm figuring it out. But for now, it starts at 3. If you have a reactor that's already charged, you get 1 charge additional that has to get spent. So you have like a floating overcharge. Yeah, neat. So you can spend as many charges as you want, but only once per task. You can spend them to get additional dice. You can spend them to do additional damage. You can spend them for specific things. You can calibrate and upgrade your equipment, or you can pass charge to someone else as long as they're within 1 volume, 1 standard containment volume of one another. Whoa. Complicated. But like not the kind of, there's this thing that happens when I read complex RPGs where I'm like, this is too complicated and I don't want to read this anymore. Like I hit a ceiling and I'm like, nah, get out of here. I can't handle this. And I put it away. This is, I'm still in the like excited, like sweet spot for this. I'm still curious and excited about how this works. So let me take a look at projects for players, because that's the other thing, the problem solving. This is what players do. This is shit that players achieve. So I think I'm gonna guess that this is where the Blades in the Dark inspiration came from. That's right. My reactor has not overcharged yet. I'm still boosting it. God, now I want to make a character of myself. I want to make myself in this. But I would need a crew first, and I would need a ship. To create a character, first you must invent the universe. I'm the apple pie. So a project is an advanced scene that enables a player to achieve outcomes greater than the single task. If you're trying to do something that's bigger than a single role, you're going to need a project. When a player announces an intention that is insufficient for a single task, suggest they revise their intention to better fit a project. Run the first task like you would any other, but interpret the outcome as part of a greater project. So a project cannot replace the crew. It has to be believable in the system, so you can't make a machine gun out of, like, trees. And there has to be economy. You can't bypass the resource economy. You can't manufacture a charge generator. That's great. That's really cool. So role-playing games as a system define what the characters are capable of doing, and can often get into a position where you're like, well, I want to cast a spell that automatically casts itself every hour for the rest of time. And it's like, okay, well, you've just broken the game. I like that projects start by saying, you can't do these things. It can do just about anything else. I'll give you systems for that, but it cannot do those 3 things, because that'll break the game. So you pick the stations that contribute to the project, and then the GM figures out the difficulty. So here are some types of projects. A negotiation project, right? Writing a new contract with a client. It might be wow, this is in depth, right? We're writing a new bounty contract. We're writing a privilege article. We're writing a trade article. It might be a salvage project, right? What are we looking for on this ship? A travel project. That's so cool. An investigation project. Basically, like, this is the game flagging, this is what the fucking game is about. This is the game literally telling us there are systems for these things because that's what it's about. Oh, that's so good. This is a game about negotiation. This is a game about salvage. This is a game about travel, investigation. This is a game about fabrication. This is a game about construction and retirement. That's so cool. That's so cool. So the retirement project is like, how do you win? How do you win for your character? How do you get out of here? You build challenges, you reserve, you pay your shares, and then you get the hell out of crew life. That is pretty solid. I'm pretty into it. So, like, as an example, if we wanted to look at, like, I don't know, a travel project, if you want to move from one place to another and it's not, like, clear and easy, it's more than a single roll, you pick the type of scene: surface, orbit, fold. You figure out milestones. How many milestones is it going to take to get there? Is it an expedition? Is it a trek? Is it a journey? Right? The Kessel Run is a project. Yeah, exactly. And then what are the stations? Pilot station. You need a pilot. You need a navigator. You need a shield engineer, a sensor analyst. You figure out some risks. This is pretty cool. Because really, running this game, after you do all the prep, all you kind of got to do is follow the various protocols that we're giving you in the beginning, figure out projects, put stuff in the way of the players. It feels like it runs a little like Blades that way. And then during downtime, the players advance using the materials they've gained, following their projects. And then they have to make hard choices about what to do with those materials. Do they sell them? Do they use them to upgrade the ship? Do they upgrade themselves? Do they augment their gear? And I love the nebulous, I love the nebulous barrier between, like, roleplay and personality and then your gear. Like, your crew kit is what you advance. It's how you get better at stuff, and you train yourself in new skills, and you physically, like, charge up this reactor. You have this, like, you're all a little bit Tony Stark, but your reactor is powered by, like, your own accomplishment and achievement. And I feel like in game, I would definitely add in some kind of, like, zero tech that aliens left us from ancient times, where charge is like a thing in game. So someone can get charged up by their, like, living their best life and succeeding at stuff. Pretty damn cool. Pretty damn cool. And we know from what the game has told us that the player characters come and go. That's why retirement is a project, right? You can retire your character and then build another one. Characters come and go from the game. It's about the world at large. So the ship that we're on, because somebody asked before, the default ship is a contingency type corvette. Built for a wide variety of duties, a volume of 3,000 tons, configurable with 75 ship units. That was that little sheet that we saw. And then we build our various units. So I wonder what the assumed crew is for a contingency type corvette. 4 sections. How many crew? 3. So require, here we go. Contingency type corvette is perfect for a crew of 3 to 6 on detached duties. There you go. Yeah, it's right there. Unlike more common vessels, you can travel without gates, carry cargo, land on a planet's surface, and put up a fight, all while acting alone and inconspicuously. Yeah, like a small freighter, 3 to 6 people. Turns out that's how many players the game supports. So cool. Yeah. Neat. Well, obviously this is a much more complex game than we can really like dive into every system. And my intent here was to give it a first look at the stuff that for me felt the most appealing about Free Spacer as a system. I was really curious to see how this game handled being crunchier than I think most of the sci-fi games that I've played recently, while still retaining the kind of like smooth ease of use. And I think from a look, it seems to succeed at that goal. Now, obviously, I have not played this. This is not a full review. It is a preview of a game that is currently on Kickstarter, which I would suggest you go and check out. There's more material out there. If you want to learn more about Free Spacer, go to Kickstarter, right? Look up the Free Spacer Kickstarter. You can look at, I know that Christoph has made some additional videos, including a more detailed look at the dice system. So how the dice rolling works, if you're curious about that. And then Eric Vulgaris, over on his channel, is running a game of Free Spacer. So if you want to see it in action, go check out Eric's channel. It looks to me like this fits into a nice space between Traveler and Stars Without Number. But if either of those games had been written with a more modern understanding of game design, which isn't to say that, I mean, Stars Without Number 2nd edition just came out, but it's built on the OSR, right? It's built on an older, specifically intentionally older model of RPG. This game says some things that feel like part of the modern game design zeitgeist, but it's still a traditionally like a large, crunchy, mechanically focused game, but with a smooth kind of story or player-driven system, right? With all the projects. Fascinating. Yeah. Precise mechanisms. So to answer our $1 million question, how is this different from Stars Without Number? Yeah, Kenneth Gardner points out projects. That's a big one. I might steal that for Stars Without Number. But there's some stuff in here I might hijack for Far Verona. Resource management as like a deep core mechanism. And then the idea of everything being represented in universe by like stuff, like complex materials, hand wavy, but physical, charge, complex materials, cargo space. Fascinating. So go check it out. This is the Free Spacer RPG. It is on, let me see. Let's look at the Kickstarter. How long are you on Kickstarter, Free Spacer? I think it's until September 18th. Free Spacer. There it is. So Free Spacer, a tabletop, Starship tabletop RPG. It is on Kickstarter for another 13 days as of the recording of this video, which would put us at the 18th of September. So go and check it out. Watch the video. Back it if you would like to do so. And and maybe we'll take another look. It'd be cool to come back and look at it after it comes out, after it's finished, and like do some of these steps. Like build some of these build some of these things. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I hope that this has been informative and interesting, and that, like me, your brain is all like doing sci-fi stuff now. You're thinking about space tungsten and stuff. And yeah, and I hope to do more of this content in the future. I would love to do a video about some other games that have come out recently. I'd love to take a look at both of the new Warhammer games. I'd love to take a look at Vampire. So keep an eye out. We'll try to do more of these things as we go. So thank you to Christoph for providing the preview version of the game and for making an RPG, because it's hard work. So thank you for that. And yeah, and that'll do it for today's first look at the Free Spacer RPG. Thanks for coming, everybody. See you later.